Hello and welcome to EWTN Pro-Life Weekly, your weekly dose of the top pro-life news and issues, all from a Catholic perspective. I'm Kathryn Feltner in our Washington, D.C. studio. Here's what we have for you in this show. Hear how you can receive an indulgence for attending the March for Life next Friday. Pope Francis speaks about the right to life to a group of diplomats, and this.
Planned Parenthood knew months and months before any of this broke into the press that Komen was going to revise its granting strategy. And
Congresswoman Karen Handel opens up about the backlash she once faced when she left the Susan G. Komen Foundation after a Planned Parenthood controversy. But first, our top story: the Senate is expected to vote on the pain-capable Unborn Child Protection Act as early as this month. The pain-capable bill protects unborn children from abortion after 5 months, more than halfway through a pregnancy, and when science shows babies can feel pain. The United States is only one of 7 nations in the world that allows children in the womb to be killed for any reason up until the moment of birth. Support for the pain-capable bill is high. Reportedly, 78% of millennials support it, and President Donald Trump has promised he would sign it into law. Senator Mike Rounds of South Dakota is a co-sponsor of the pain-capable Unborn Child Protection Act. He joins us from Capitol Hill. Thank you for your time, Senator.
Well, I appreciate the opportunity to visit.
There are reports the Senate will take up the pain-capable bill this month. Can we expect that?
Good question. Right now, it's probably the most valuable time on the Senate floor is time on the Senate floor. We've got a number of items coming up, which includes trying to fund government again for at least between now and the end of September. But I think that there are a number of different proposals that have the possibility of coming up. I have not seen anything confirmed yet that will be one of the items that will come up in the next week to 10 days. We're hoping that it will come up appropriately at and around the March for Life time period.
We'll be watching that closely. President Trump has said he would sign the pain-capable bill into law, but do you think it will pass the Senate? And what will you do to convince your colleagues to support it?
Well, as you know, in the Senate, it requires 60 votes, and that's going to be part of the challenge. Very seldom do we ever come up with an agreement for 60 votes for almost anything in the United States Senate. But this is one of those items that I think has a strong possibility of receiving those 60 votes. So I'm optimistic, but you never know until the bill is up. And I can pretty much tell you that unless we've got the 60 votes, they probably won't bring it up for a vote because they'll have so many other things that are in demand to get done as well. But we're optimistic that they will be able to bring it up, and that as they bring it up, that would be an indication that we do have the 60 votes in order to get it passed.
Senator, you have also co-sponsored the Born Alive Infant Protection Act, which would protect newborns that survive abortions by requiring appropriate care and admission to a hospital. There's news the House will vote on that bill. Why is that piece of legislation one that you support?
Well, let's just talk common sense for a little bit. I think a lot of us, we can talk about being pro-life, but when you talk about real life that's there and obvious, I think you gather more support. And so let me just begin. I'm pro-life to begin with. I believe that we should protect life from conception to natural death. You protect the very young and the very old. Can you think of a better definition of very young than a child in the circumstances that you've just described?
And finally, Senator, the Affordable Care Act subsidizes hundreds of plans covering abortion. Now Congress is considering a spending bill to bail out Obamacare plans, but without the Hyde Amendment. What do you make of that? And would you oppose legislation that supports taxpayer funding of abortion or plans that cover abortion?
We have the Hyde Amendment since 1976, and the Hyde Amendment, which is what we used in most appropriation bills, stops the use of federal funding for abortions. And what we want to be able to do with the product that you're talking about, which is called the Alexander Murray bill, is a transition out of Obamacare. We hope to have that attached to an appropriation bill where the Hyde amendments are continuous in nature. That takes care of the issue, and it prohibits those funds from being used for any abortions.
So you would prohibit you would want to prohibit the use of funds for abortion.
Absolutely. Look, all of us that are here that are pro-life in nature, we want to make sure that the funds that we provide through the taxpayer dollars that are there, that they never go to fund abortions. That's one thing that a lot of us feel very, very strongly about. At the same time, we know that we have to transition out of Obamacare. This transition is the next step in the elimination of Obamacare. And our plan is that if we attach the Alexander Murray product to an appropriation bill, we are afforded the protections under the Hyde Amendment. And that's the discussion that has been occurring within every discussion that I've had concerning this particular transition plan. This is the next step in the elimination of Obamacare.
Senator Mike Rounds of South Dakota, thank you for your time.
Thank you.
For a reaction and analysis, we are joined now by our trusted pro-life expert. Marjorie Dannenfelser is president of the Susan B. Anthony List and joins us now in this busy week. Thanks for being here.
Big week.
Yes, it is. And next week, too.
Yes.
Senator Rounds is a co-sponsor of the Pain-Capable Unborn Child Protection Act. Why is it important the Senate vote on this, even if it's not likely to pass?
Yeah, it's very, very important, the vote that was had already, because there has been one vote on it, but it's very important to be taking a vote in the year of a really, really important election. These midterm elections in the Senate will be decisive in terms of what legislation will get passed, will get through the Senate. There are senators, it is going to be a really, really, really tough vote to vote no on this late-term bill, 5 months. So Claire McCaskill, Heidi Heitkamp, John Tester, tough vote for them, and if they vote the wrong way, our people that are already in their states are going to be telling voters at their front doors what their senator just did.
We'll be tallying and looking at their votes, absolutely. Amen. Another pro-life news this week, it was announced the House will vote on the Born Alive Abortion Survivors Protection Act. Long name. Yeah. Next week. Can you tell us more about this piece of legislation?
Yeah, the Born Alive bill protects an unborn child if they are born during an abortion, but they clearly are alive. There's a lot of documented evidence that this happens quite a lot. There are nurses who've quit because they were forced to be involved in such a thing. Jill Stanek, who works for us, is one of those people. There is a law on the books that defines what a baby is. But it doesn't have any, in terms of the born alive in that instance, but it does not do anything to put teeth in the law, require that the child be taken to emergency care immediately and that child be revived and helped in that moment. Imagine the heartbreaking moment of seeing that child and leaving it in a soiled room to let it die. That baby deserves help.
And there are abortion survivors who are now some great outspoken pro-life advocates.
That's right.
I was almost a victim, but now here I am.
That's right.
On another piece of pro-life legislation, it is a busy week. The funding deadline is January 19th, the same day as the March for Life. As you heard Senator Rounds say, he claims that the Alexander Murray Amendment would include and would afford the pro-life Hyde Amendment protections. Is that your understanding?
Yeah, well, I think this is a really important thing for the pro-life movement to know right now. That bill, that spending bill, very similar, was moving a couple of weeks ago. I got together with the Vice President and the leader of the Senate and a couple of other pro-life leaders, and we said no go on this bill if the Hyde Amendment is not in it. They agreed. They said fine. They let the bill move without that health care Alexander Murray bill. Now that is divided. So the health care bill, the Alexander Murray bill, will be voted on in a separate place in the appropriation. We believe in the Appropriations Committee. We hope that'll be the case. If that happens, the Hyde Amendment will be in it.
Okay.
There is that spending bill that's very important on the day of the March for Life. It doesn't have any pro-life related stuff in it, but there will be important pro-life votes on that very day.
And so many pro-lifers will be here in D.C. as well. It really is an exciting time. So much to monitor, so much to look for. We're really grateful for your analysis. Marjorie Dannenfelser of the Susan B. Anthony List.
Thank you.
The United States is one of only 7 nations to allow abortion for any reason up until the moment of birth. It's extremist, and we are in the same company as China and North Korea. To put a stop to this, the House of Representatives late last year passed the Pain-Capable Unborn Child Protection Act. It would protect babies from abortion after 5 months, which is when science shows babies can feel pain. Now, it's the Senate's turn to vote for this pro-life bill, and that brings us to this week's call to action. Here is how you can get involved in the pro-life movement this week and advocate for life to your senator. Go to your computer and type into your internet browser prolifeweekly.com. That's prolifeweekly.com. Here you can tell your senator to support the pain-capable Unborn Child Protection Act. Once again, this pro-life bill would ban abortions at 20 weeks. This is when science shows babies can feel pain. President Trump has promised to sign this bill into law, but it must first pass the Senate. The path to success will be tricky, which is all the more reason why we need you to take action. By going to prolifeweekly.com, submitting your information, and sending in your pro-life message, we are letting our senators know that we are watching their vote. Your voice matters, and it makes a difference when you follow our call to action. Tell your senator to support the pain-capable Unborn Child Protection Act by going to prolifeweekly.com. In more pro-life news, attorneys for a pro-life pregnancy care center network filed their opening brief Monday with the U.S. Supreme Court. The lawsuit challenges a California law that forces pro-life pregnancy care centers provide free advertising for the abortion industry. The opening brief asks the High Court to reverse a ruling that upholds the law. Lawyers for the pro-life pregnancy care network say forcing centers to provide free advertising contrary to its core mission is a violation of their constitutionally protected freedom. The University of New Mexico Health Sciences Center launches an investigation into the transfer of fetal tissue by a faculty member to a private medical research company. According to documents obtained by the Albuquerque Journal, the university discovered medical professor Robin Olds acquired fetal tissue for months from an abortion clinic and transferred it to a research company. Her research duties have been suspended, and she was barred from the lab following concerns it potentially infringes on the university policy not to buy or sell human tissue. The university was one of the groups investigated by the Select Congressional Panel investigating Planned Parenthood in 2016. And as if you needed another reason to go, Catholics participating in the 45th annual March for Life in Washington, D.C. next Friday will be able to receive a plenary indulgence. An indulgence is a remission of the temporal punishment due to sins already forgiven. In a letter signed by the Archdiocese of Washington's Cardinal Donald Wuerl and the Diocese of Arlington's Bishop Michael Burbidge, Catholics can obtain the indulgence by engaging in events hosted by the March for Life. Those who have grave reason to not leave their home can also receive the plenary indulgence. To find out more, you can visit our news partner, Catholic News Agency, at catholicnewsagency.com. For all things March for Life, be sure to stay with us on EWTN next Friday, January 19th. We'll have live coverage of the march starting at 9 a.m. Eastern. I'll be hosting the coverage right here from the D.C. studio, along with Father Joseph Mary Wolf. We go now to pro-life headlines from around the globe.
Tenere ogni tentativo di dialogo nella penisola coreana.
Pope Francis emphasized the right to life in a lengthy speech to diplomats on Monday. The Holy Father lamented abortion as a human rights violation, saying, "I think primarily of innocent children discarded even before they are born, unwanted at times simply because they are ill or malformed, or as a result of the selfishness of adults." Pope Francis also spoke out against the mistreatment of the elderly. In Malta, the Democratic Party warns a bill before Parliament could decriminalize abortion. As the Times of Malta reports, the Democratic Party claims the gender-based violence and domestic violence bill leaves the door open for abortions because it only criminalizes abortions performed without a woman's consent. More than 90% of Malta's population is Catholic. And the United Kingdom's Prime Minister Theresa May appoints a pro-life member of Parliament as vice chairman of Conservatives for Women. Maria Caulfield works as a nurse in her spare time and has spoken out against abortion. Pro-choice advocates have decried the new appointment, while Caulfield tweeted out she was delighted with it. A new study finds the maternal mortality rate in Texas has nearly doubled during the past decade. The study, published in Birth Journal last week, finds the Texas maternal mortality rate reached 32.5 in 2015. That's up from 18.3 from 2006 to 2010. Researchers conclude the increase is partially due to over-reporting of maternal deaths, and more efforts are needed to strengthen the reporting of death certificate data. Abortion advocates try to twist maternal mortality rate as another reason women should have access to abortion. Citing maternal mortality rates, a November Planned Parenthood blog post said, "When politicians propose 6 and 20-week abortion bans and threaten birth control access, excuse us if we call foul on their disingenuous concern for women's lives." To help us untangle the lies from the truth here, we're joined by our next pro-life guest. Gloria Purvis is co-host of EWTN's own Morning Glory radio show and chairperson of Black Catholics United for Life. It's so good to see you in studio, Gloria.
Good to see you too,
Always
Kathryn.
love having you here. Why is the maternal mortality rate so high? Shouldn't we have higher medical standards than this? It's the United States, it's 2018.
Well, the CDC actually says that the pregnancy-related death rate for women in this country is actually low. But if you want to look at the numbers of Black women, white women, or non-white Latino women that die in pregnancy, Black women do have a higher rate comparatively. But overall, the number itself is low in this country, but some women have higher risk than others.
So there's lots of different numbers from lots of different resources. And as I mentioned, abortion advocates really try and take these numbers and this data and twist it. Planned Parenthood Black community tweeted out in November that if you're a Black woman in America, it's statistically safer to have an abortion than to carry a pregnancy to term or give birth. Gloria, what's your response to that?
Well, I had several reactions when I saw that tweet. The first thing that I thought was, well, in the maternal mortality rate, it doesn't capture all pregnancy outcomes. The denominator is looking at all live births, so they've excluded the other pregnancy outcomes, which are miscarriage and abortion, so you don't really have a clear number there. Secondly, I thought it is absurd to think that Black women's bodies somehow are incapable of carrying a pregnancy to term. We know how God designed the female body, and it was meant to be able to carry babies to term. And that tweet somehow positioned the unborn Black child as an enemy of the Black woman, sort of, you kill that baby first before it kills you. And I thought it was particularly odd. The third thing I thought about the tweet was that it seems to then, if you follow, that Planned Parenthood is saying, well, now we're so successful at abortions, is instead of killing both the mother and child, we now only kill the child. To me, that's an argument for them not needing any more federal funds. If they're so good at what they do, let that $500 million go to Black women who have poor maternal health outcomes. It should go to Black women and helping them have better prenatal care, better postnatal care. We know that with the increasing numbers of hypertension, diabetes, and chronic heart disease, that money should go to that kind of care for the Black community. So
Planned Parenthood is an expert at abortion, not so much with the actual healthcare part of it, which can be seen even just in their messaging. Gloria, you have to question, with that kind of messages coming from Planned Parenthood with this data, what's their intent? What are they trying to do?
They're trying to drum up more business, and they're trying to tell Black women, look, you're safer to come to us and let us terminate your pregnancy than you seeing it through and taking your chances, which I find particularly odd because as I was looking at their tweet, I thought, wait a minute. This is the same account that tweets a lot in support of Black Lives Matter, which the premise is don't unjustly criminalize Black people and have the police be afraid of them and therefore kill them. But that's sort of the same tactic they used here with the unborn Black child. They have now created the unborn Black child as if that child is some kind of criminal threatening the life of the mother, and therefore the mother should be fearful and the mother should kill first. Well, I've got news for them. Black lives do matter, even in the womb.
Amen. Thank you so much for your reflection on this and your thought on this so that we can take this messaging from Planned Parenthood and actually speak the truth.
Amen. Thank you for the opportunity, Kathryn.
Gloria Purvis, so good to see you. When we come back,
There's not a single Planned Parenthood clinic in the country that is licensed to do mammograms.
Congresswoman Kathryn Handel shares the details over why she left the Susan G. Komen Foundation and her battle with Planned Parenthood. Stay tuned as EWTN Pro-Life Weekly continues after this break. Welcome back to EWTN Pro-Life Weekly. I'm Kathryn Feltner. The abortion industry finds a way to infiltrate into every medium, whether it's television and films and magazines and now video games. A new online video game called Trapped is a simulation of someone who wants to have an abortion. Players essentially walk in the shoes of a woman who learns she is pregnant and takes the necessary steps to get an abortion, including going to the doctor, getting medical bills covered, and finding transportation. The programmer behind Trapped told the Daily Dot she hopes players will see the roadblocks to abortion and will contact their legislators to get more abortion funding. Abortion is not a game, and killing an unborn baby should not be a first-place prize. It is a tragedy. The trailer for this video game Trapped attacks abortion facility regulations. But if we were really looking out for women, wouldn't we want the highest health standards? This game also claims to promote choice, but there's no option for the woman to choose life in the game. Why don't we have a game that shows how fulfilling motherhood can be? Moms are real superheroes, giving birth to a new life, loving and caring for an independent human. That would be empowering. This video game Trapped is inaccurate, fear-mongering, and another route for abortion advocates to spread their propaganda and try to make abortion as casual as a click of the mouse. Remember, you have a role in countering today's culture of death. Go to ProLifeWeekly.com to follow this week's call to action. Tell your senator to support the pain-capable Unborn Child Protection Act. The president of Planned Parenthood, Cecile Richards, has admitted before in congressional testimony the abortion provider does not provide mammograms. It makes sense then that an organization whose sole mission is to end breast cancer shouldn't fund Planned Parenthood. But you might remember in 2012 the major backlash surrounding the Susan G. Komen Foundation when they pooled their Planned Parenthood funding and then reversed their decision. The executive at the center of the controversy was Handel, who resigned from her top post in the midst of the controversy. But last summer, Handel became Congresswoman Handel when she defeated the Planned Parenthood-backed candidate in the most expensive U.S. House race in history. In an exclusive interview, the Catholic and pro-life Georgia Congresswoman opens up about that 2012 controversy and why she resigned from her executive position.
Congresswoman, you were the Senior Vice President of Public Policy at the Susan G. Komen for the Cure when in 2012 they decided to end their grants to Planned Parenthood. And as you write in your book, Planned Bullyhood, that decision was not a political one, it was an economic one. Can you explain why was it economically wise to end grants to Planned Parenthood?
So for Komen, what Komen was trying to do was to get the biggest bang possible out of their grant program, because as a nonprofit there is just such a high standard to deliver the most you possibly can for women fighting breast cancer. And while most of the grants that went to Planned Parenthood were education-oriented grants, those were things that could be done in a national way, and those documents provided that education information provided just as a matter of course to local communities. In the areas where Planned Parenthood claimed to be doing mammograms, it just was not true. There's not a single Planned Parenthood clinic in the country that is licensed to do mammograms. They are a pass-through organization, and the decision was that more mammograms could be provided to more women if Komen went directly to the mammography provider.
The backlash facing the Susan G. Komen Foundation for that decision was fierce, and a lot of the blame got shifted onto you. What was that like?
Well, obviously it was very difficult to sort of be the focal point of such anger from the pro-abortion side of it. But at the end of the day, I tried to do what was the right thing for Komen, which is a good organization that no one can take away from the fact that Nancy Brinker and that organization really made such strides in the fight against breast cancer and early detection. So I wanted to be sure I could hold on to my principles while also doing the right thing for a good organization.
4 days after the Susan G. Komen ended their grants to Planned Parenthood, they reversed their decision, and a few days after that, you resigned. Why exactly did you resign?
So the decision initially was never about the politics of abortion/life movement. It was never about that. So for me, if politics wasn't playing into the decision in the first place, then to reverse it meant that politics was involved. And that was just a very difficult thing for me to reconcile. And secondly, I was the focal point, and my presence was hurting the organization, and I did not want the organization to be hindered from being able to move forward. So it was with the clearest of conscience, knowing that I did my job to the best of my ability, that I walked away free and clear, no severance, no nothing, and just went on to live my life.
Your book is called Planned Bullyhood. What was your experience firsthand with that organization that they got that title?
Planned Parenthood knew months and months before any of this broke into the press that Komen was going to revise its granting strategy, and that it would impact the very minimal, just $700,000 in grants to Planned Parenthood, hardly a decimal point on the Planned Parenthood books. And they knew that, yet, despite the fact that the two organizations had worked together on press statements, Planned Parenthood still decided to take an organization that is truly an organization supporting women and throw it under the bus like schoolyard bullies. And it was one of the worst examples of a private organization like Komen being bullied into submission, frankly, from the pro-abortion. They acted as thugs in all of this, and it was pretty despicable.
If someone from Planned Parenthood happens to catch part of this interview, what would you want to say to them, the largest U.S. abortion provider, now that you're in Congress?
Well, first of all, I will not stop trying to continue to pass legislation that will foster and build a pro-life culture in the United States. What I also think is that for all women, and I won't make this so much about Planned Parenthood, but for all of us, we need to come to a recognition that a lot has changed in medicine and science since the Roe v. Wade decision came down. And the courts at that time, women at that time, did not have the benefit of the now 4D sonograms that we see. And I certainly don't judge women who made a decision in those early months of Roe v. Wade based on the limited information that they had.
Representative Kathryn Handel, thank you for your time.
Thank you.
That's it for this edition of EWTN Pro-Life Weekly. We'd love to hear from you. You can reach us anytime with questions, ideas, and comments at prolifeweekly@ewtn.com. For everyone traveling to Washington, D.C. for the March for Life, safe travels out here, and I look forward to seeing you all again next week. Life is a gift. Your life is a gift. God bless.